Hey everybody, NecroVMX here, and welcome back to another Pokemon Showdown batch of matches. I have 10 matches to show you, so here we go. Let's start it off with TS Quaker. So TS Quaker sent out Tapu Lele, and I sent out Golisopod, and this is not really a terrible matchup. They went for Moonblast, which I think very well. I went for Leech Life. It does a little more damage than they did, and I get some of my health back, so I'm thinking this is a pretty good start, but they're probably not going to stay in, and I was correct. They sent out Rotom Heat to take the second Leech Life, but that's fine. I don't really mind it. Definitely, kind of weird choice because Golisopod is part Water type, but I decided to swap into Breloom. That was a mistake because I took the Overheat and immediately went down. I think that I was confusing Rotom Heat and Rotom Wash, so that was a huge mistake on my part. So I sent in Charizard to get a little air slash flinch hacks. I don't get the flinch. They went for Volt Switch to get the hell out of there, and they sent in Aggron. Now here's a really interesting thing. They went and evolved into Mega Aggron. The thing about Aggron is a Rock and Steel type. Aggron is only Steel type, so it doesn't take as much damage from the Focus Blast as it would have, because instead of being double weak, it's just single weak. So they swap in Tapu Lele to take the second Focus Blast. Of course, that's really going to do nothing at all. I went for Acrobatics, and that's going to take down Tapu Lele. So they sent in Mean Shao. This is a bad idea since I just used Acrobatics, but they managed to outspeed me and get the Stone Edge off. And I'm like, I was really, when I saw the animation, I was like, please miss, please miss, please miss. So I sent in Metagross, and they sent in Rotom Heat. I Mega Evolve, and I'm like, well, there's definitely an Overheat coming. Let me try and flinch it with Zen Headbutt. Unfortunately, I missed. But thankfully, the second Zen Headbutt is enough to take it down. So, yeah, that worked out well. So Mean Shao comes back in and goes for the knockoff. That's not going to do much damage because I'm not really holding an item. Zen Headbutt is going to get him right out of there. The crit probably mattered, too, because Mean Shao is kind of a badass. So in comes Delcatty. I'm thinking, what the hell can this thing possibly do? I guess it has Sucker Punch, which is super effective. But the Hammer Arm is going to take him down to 10% health. It's going to, take my speed down, but Metagross isn't exactly a speedy Pokemon anyway. I'm not really worried about it. I take the second Sucker Punch really well, and the second Hammer Arm is easily just going to turn this Delcatty into paste, so there's no problem there. So in comes Ferrothorn. I'm not sure if I can really do anything off of this thing. I went for Hammer Arm. It actually does really good damage. Of course, I'm going to go down to a mixture of the blowback from Hammer Arm and the Rocky Helmet. They went for Gyro Ball. I sent in Kyurem Black. I'm sorry, that's Kyurem White to do an Ice Beam. That's going to take him down. And here comes Aggron. I went for Ice Beam. It resisted it because it's no longer a rock type, but it did enough damage. They went for Heavy Slam. That's not going to be enough, and the Aggron is just very easily going to go down to the second Ice Beam here, and that is game. So, pretty good game there. Wasn't too worried, but made a couple of boneheaded mistakes there. So this next one's against RDG Star. Okay, so I start off with Sharpedo here, and they start off with Tyranitar. And I'm wondering if they're going to want to even stay into this, and I was right to assume that they'd swap. They swapped to Umbreon because it's pure Dark type. I had went for Waterfall, which would have been super effective against Tyranitar, but it's still a really good move that does good damage and has a chance of flinching, and Mega Sharpedo here is very fast. So they're trying to protect, I guess trying to get some, extra damage off from the Sandstorm, although the Sandstorm, they're not protected from it. Protect does not protect you from weather. I went for another Waterfall. I don't get the flinch. They went for Toxic. Good for me. That missed. So, no big deal there. Umbreon's really tanky, but he doesn't often have a great move set. I'm just hoping it doesn't have Wish or something. So they went for another Protect, which is going to stop the Waterfall. But I'm just kind of wondering what their game plan is here, what they're really trying to accomplish. So in comes Caesar, which is going to take the next Waterfall, and I get pretty good damage. Sharpedo just has high attack. It's a speedy attacker. I went for another Waterfall here. Still no flinch. They went for Bug Bite. That's easily going to take me down. But I feel like the Sharpedo did a good job, even though, it's 5-6 now. I feel like, he gimped a lot of their Pokemon. I sent in my own Caesar. They swap out to Moltres, which takes the Bullet Punch, which probably would have taken their Caesar down. I'm definitely not wanting to stay into this matchup. So I switch over to Rapidash because it has Flash Fire, because I know there's a Fire-type move coming. Fortunately, it hits and I get the Flash Fire boost. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to take advantage of that, but I went for Wild Charge, which does pretty good damage, and the blowback is not too terrible. Unfortunately, I'm also running Life Orb, so I lost a lot more health than I normally would have. They went for Hurricane, it missed, and they decided to swap over to a Tyranitar. Definitely thinking that I would do Wild Charge again. Actually, I'd gone for Flare Blitz that time, but, he resists that, so I probably should have went for Wild Charge since Tyranitar doesn't resist that. So they go ahead and Mega Evolve. I had gone for High Horsepower, which does really good damage, but it's just not enough. They went for Earthquake, and that's going to take me down. Once again, it's 4-6, but I'm not feeling bad about this because a lot of their Pokemon have poor health. So I sent in Deoxys. This is Deoxys Speed form. Nothing's going to outspeed this. They sent in Moltres. I'd gone for Knockoff because I figured they would swap. Unfortunately, I get burned by Flame Body, but that's okay because Deoxys largely has a lot of special moves, so that's not that big of a deal. I went for the Psycho Boost to just take the Moltres down or whatever was going to swap in. Although I guess they could have swapped in Umbreon. I doubt that they were going to do that, just because they don't seem like someone who swaps too often. So in comes the Umbreon. I went for Knockoff just to get rid of its leftovers. Umbreon almost always has leftovers. They went for Wish, so it is confirmed that they do have Wish, and I really don't have anything to take Umbreon down, so they're going to get their health back here, especially that they're going for Protect. So I went for Taunt to just stop all the shenanigans. No more Protect, no more Wish, no more of that bullshit. I'm done with that, at least for the next couple turns. They decide to swap over to Volcarona. So I was going to put up Stealth Rocks anyway, so I have some Stealth Rocks out, so that's not bad. So this is a battle that I'm kind of losing and winning at the same time. I'm behind in Pokemon, but way ahead in damage. I knock off their Life Orb. They went for Quiver Dance. Quiver Dance with a Life Orb is kind of frightening, so I'm really glad I got rid of that item. So I decide to swap into my Zygarde 10% form. He's not that bulky, but, when he gets low health, as long as he doesn't get one shot and he'll go to the complete form, they get a Giga Drain off, which is going to take me down to my complete form right after Devastating Drake, which is going to do pretty good damage. My Power Construct kicks in, I get some health back, and I'm now Zygarde complete form. The second Giga Drain isn't going to do nearly as much damage, but I'm kind of annoyed that they're getting health back. I decided to go for 1,000 Arrows. I don't think that crit even mattered. Volcarona goes down. So now it's dead even in terms of Pokemon. I'm way ahead in damage, though, and they rage quit. They knew, their Tyranitar was low health, their Umbreon was low health, their Caesar was low health. They had one other Pokemon, but I think they knew they were just not going to win that one, and they decided to get the hell out of there. So this next battle is against CC9407. They start off with Clawitzer, and I start off with Sylveon. Now, this is a really cool Sylveon. Takes the Ice Beam pretty well, all things considered. I decided to go for Calm Mind because I figured there's nothing that Clawitzer is going to do that's really going to hurt me too badly, and I do have leftovers. So the second Ice Beam is obviously going to do less because my special defense is up. I went for Hyper Voice. It does pretty good damage, so, I figured I might be able to scare them into a swap or something. They're sticking in. They're staying with the Ice Beam. The second Hyper Voice is going to take Clawitzer right down, so, sayonara. Sayonara. So in comes Seviper. I'm not too worried, even though it's a poison type. I decided to just swap into Regirock. They went for Poison Jab, which is about what I expected. I do get Poison, which kind of sucks, but Regirock doesn't have a whole lot of utility. He has good health. They went for Earthquake. It does good damage, but not a big deal. I get the Stone Edge off. Unfortunately, it doesn't kill, but I figure, hey, he did something. Regirock did something. The second Earthquake's going to take him down. I really don't like the Reggies. Regice is a little better than the other four, but the other three rather. So I bring in Hitmonlee just to use a knockoff and get rid of Seviper. Kind of a revenge kill there. They send in Hoopa, so I'm thinking this is an interesting choice. I decided to just go for knockoff. I mean, obviously Hoopa's a good matchup against Hitmonlee, but you just saw that I used knockoff, and knockoff is double effective on Hoopa. So in comes the Duskmane Necrozma. I use knockoff again just to get rid of their item. It turned out to be nothing, so it makes me think that they are going to Ultra Burst or something. I don't know why they're not holding an item. I decided to send in Sylveon. The Sunsteel Strike is going to body it. That's unfortunate that Sylveon didn't get to do much. It's just kind of a shame. It was a really interesting set. So I'm getting outsped a lot, so I send in Weavile, one of the fastest Pokemon out there, to just do another knockoff. Even though it's not holding an item, knockoff is super effective. Unfortunately, it's not enough, and the Sunsteel Strike is going to take down Weavile. So I'm worried here, so I send in Furfrou. Furfrou is just a defensive wall, and then when you use that Cotton Guard, it raises your defense just drastically. So the Searing Sunrise Smash comes out, and that's it's going to do a lot less damage than it normally would have. I went for Return, not the damage I'm looking for, which is, to be expected because it is a Steel type. They went for Photon Geyser. Like I said, Furfrou is just a defensive wall as it is. So the second Return is thankfully going to do enough to take him down. So that Necrozma was a real pain in my ass. So in comes Guzzlord. I decided to go for the rest to get all my health back because my defense is so high. And Guzzlord is just, a physical Pokemon, so I don't think it's going to be able to do anything to me. I woke up because of the Chesto Berry and took the Hammer Arm really well. I went for another Cotton Guard. Now my defense is as high as it's going to get. Draco Meteor hits me pretty hard because that is a special move, but of course it has diminishing returns. I just get off another rest. Obviously the berry is gone forever, but I know that Draco Meteor is going to do less and less damage each time, and there's absolutely nothing that Guzzlord can do to me physically. So they send in Bastiodon. I was thinking they just might double swap back just to use Draco Meteor again, which is what I would have done, but they actually decided to set up Stealth Rocks, which is fine because I'm not planning on having Furfrou go anywhere. So Furfrou wakes up, he goes for the Return. Obviously Bastiodon double resists Return, but at least I got rid of that Air Balloon. They went for Rock Blast, which is it's negligible damage, and it only hit twice. So I'm just going for Return. I'm just going to chip away at this thing, maybe get a couple of crits. There's nothing it can do to me. I can't really do much to it, but I have Rest and really high defense. Bastiodon has good defense, but mostly the reason I'm not doing anything is because, of its typing and the fact that Return is a normal type. Return is actually Furfrou's only attacking move on this set, which is fine. So they decided to try out Metal Burst. It does about as much damage as they would do with Rock Burst if it hit 5 times. So I think they're going to stick to that because at least that's, more consistent damage. So, this part, I'm actually going to speed this up a bit because this just goes on and on. So I decided to get the rest off. They went for Roar to drag out my Vaporeon. So Vaporeon goes for the Skull. That's super effective. I don't get the burn. They went for Rock Blast. They missed. So I'm thinking, all right, Vaporeon coming in clutch here because it would have taken forever to take this thing down with Furfrou. The second Scald is going to take the Bastiodon down. So the only thing left is the Guzzlord. And do you think I have an Ice move on this? Of course I do. So Ice Beam doesn't really do a lot of damage, but I take the Draco Meteor really well. Vaporeon is a special wall, and they're not going to be able to really do that again. So the second Ice Beam is going to put them really in the danger zone. They went for Crunch just to try to get some damage off, but it's just not going to be enough. And the third Ice Beam is going to take them down, and that's game. That was a really good one. I wasn't planning on swatching into Vaporeon because I was just like, let's see what we could do with Furfrou. Let's see how annoying I can be with him. But they forced the issue. So this next battle is against Ervilha 11. So they sent out Mimikyu, always a frightening Pokemon because of that ability. I have Levani. So they immediately use Swords Dance because that is what you do with Mimikyu. I decided to go for the Sticky Web because I knew they were going to set up. I might as well set up again. So I sent in Jumpluff. They went for a second Swords Dance. I think they knew that Levani couldn't do anything to me and that do anything to them and that I was going to swap. Jumpluff gets the Toxic off, goes down to Play Rough, which is to be expected, but he did his job. I really just want a Toxic on this thing. But I'm really worried about it. Like, how can I wall this thing out? So I sent in Levani. They went for another Swords Dance. I still haven't even broken the Disguise. I decided to do that really quickly with the X-Scissor. So, X-Scissor is not the most amazing move to use against it. Their Play Rough takes me down to my Focus Sash. That is why I sent Levani in, because it has a Focus Sash, and I'm just trying to get the Toxic to rack up a little more. I just use X-Scissor just to get a little, chip away at it a little. The second, I use Wood Hammer, which is really a mistake because that has blowback, and the Toxic is racking up. So actually that takes them down to 2% health. They should have just went for Play Rough. So I sent in Stoutland, which is going to intimidate them, drop the attack at least a little bit, and then since I outspeed them, Crunch is going to take the Mimikyu down. So, that was just, I was really worried about that. So Tyrantrum comes in, and I decide to swap over to Gardevoir because I figured maybe he would use Draco Meteor or something, and then I can just not worry about it. But they actually went for Stealth Rocks. So I went for Moonblast, which bodies the Tyrantrum, and that's going to go down really fast. So here comes Dodrio. Dodrio goes ahead and uses the Brave Bird. They get the critical. That critical probably mattered, and I go down. They take a lot of blowback at least. So I send in Stoutland to intimidate them because Dodrio has pretty high attack. And then they swap in Palisand, pretty much knowing that I'm going to go for like an extreme speed or something. But I actually had gone for Ice Fang, which I think they should have known because Dodrio is a flying type. So Ice Fang is doing pretty good against Palisand. They went for Earth Power. It does okay, so I'm thinking this is a matchup that I'm okay with. Even though they're getting leftovers back, I'm winning this out. So they go for Protect, which is just like, what are you even doing? I'm just going to use Ice Fang again. I guess they're just getting a little bit of health back from their leftovers, but it's not like I'm losing health. So the third Ice Fang is going to freeze them, which is really nice. So now I don't have to worry about them using Protect at least for one turn. And thankfully they don't thaw out right away because it doesn't have like Steam Eruption or Scald or anything. Ice Fang is going to take the Palisand down. Good night, sleep tight, you white. In comes Dodrio. Obviously I'm going to stick to Ice Fang because it is super effective on Dodrio. It's not quite enough to take it out. They get off the Brave Bird, another critical Brave Bird. That's the second one. But Dodrio is going to go down to the blowback. So it's 2v2. It's really coming down to the wire. We have entry hazards on both sides. They send in Kyurem Black. I sent in Heracross. This is a really good matchup because Kyurem Black is weak to fighting type moves. I decide to Mega Evolve and immediately go for the close combat. That's going to take them down. Now my defense and my special defense are dick. I'm just hoping that this is going to work out. So in comes Sceptile, and wouldn't you know it, this is a Mega Sceptile. So I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. They went for Outrage. It's not enough to take me out. I went for Pin Missile. That is game. Pin Missile is there's no way it's going to take that from a Mega Heracross. So it really came down to the wire, but then this Mega Heracross really brought things back for me. So GG on that one. This next one's versus Tuba Sub. That would be weird. Tuna Sub 111. So they sent in Purugly, which what the hell? I sent in Evoltal. Purugly is just terrible. They went for knockoff. That's fair. They got rid of my leftovers. I'm okay with that. I decided to get the Toxic off on this thing because Purugly, has a lot of hit points at least. And at least we can chip it down. They went for another knockoff. Obviously, that's not going to do as much damage. I went for Hurricane just for the stab damage. It does pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with this. I know this Purugly's either going to swap out or just try to chip me down a little bit before it goes down. So I went for Dark Pulse just in case they did swap. But, that's going to take him down. So Magcargo comes in. Magcargo is just kind of a terrible Pokemon. Dark Pulse isn't even super effective, and it takes down just 49.8% of its health. The second Dark Pulse does a little bit better after they flinched, and that's going to take him down. Venomoth comes in, sets up a nasty plot, but I'm not really super worried about this. I went for Dark Pulse. It does okay. It actually turned out that wasn't Venomoth, that was Zoroark, so that's why it didn't do as much damage as I expected. So they get me with the Sludge Bomb. That's fair. I also know that they have a Venomoth now. I sent in Heracross. They switch over to Venomoth. This is another Mega Heracross. He's just a beast. So I had gone for Pin Missile, which of course Venomoth is going to resist pretty well, but that's gonna really hurt him anyway because it hit 5 times. I think I might have been a Technician. I'm not sure. So they go behind the substitute. That's a mistake because I have Rock Blast, and Rock Blast with Technician is just frightening, so he's going to go down. So out comes Lilligant. Oh man. So they went for Sleep Powder. I knew they would. Thankfully it missed. I go for Pin Missile. They're not going to be able to take this. It's over. They even said before they sent out the Lilligant, they said in the chat, well, I'm screwed. I told them, hey, never give up. You never know what could happen. But then when they sent out their last Pokemon, which is Cacturne, I was like, yeah, you might be a little screwed because Cacturne is also weak to Pin Missile, and then their last Pokemon is the Zoroark, which is of course weak to Fighting type, which Heracross is. So I'm thinking, I actually considered maybe swapping out just to give them kind of a fighting chance. They went for Sledge Bomb, but I decided, whatever. It's weak to fighting and bugs, which is both of Heracross's types. I went for Pin Missile. That's going to take them out. So good game, nevertheless. They just kind of got screwed over with, being walled out by a Mega Heracross, pretty much. So this next battle is actually versus Slayer Darth. There's a familiar name. Slayer Darth caught me on Pokemon Showdown. It was right before I was about to record List Critics, and Peyton was running a little late, so we got a couple of battles, and Slayer Darth actually beat me both times. This is the second battle I'm going to show you. The first battle I got just like a terrible, terrible team. This one was a little better. So he starts out with Darmanitan, which he immediately swaps out to Electros, which takes my Hydro Pump from Simipour pretty well. I think he knew I was going to go for a Water-type move. I went for Ice Beam. I get the Freeze, so I'm thinking, that's okay. But unfortunately, this Electros unthaws right away and gets off the Thunderbolt. It's not like even like Thunderbolt is a move that unthaws you. He just got lucky there, so that kind of sucks. So I sent in Shaman. I decided to throw up the Leech Seed because I thought he would swap out to something else there, and then I didn't want to go ahead for Seed Flare. But he stayed in and used Flamethrower. Thankfully, Shaman is really bulky. So because he's staying in, I decided to Seed Flare it, and that's the Electros down. So you guys know I'm going to lose this battle, but at least I did pretty well. So he sends Darmanitan back in. I decide to send in Quillfish to cut his attack a little. The mighty Quillfish should never be underestimated. He went for Flare Blitz, as I knew that he would. He takes a little bit of recoil, and, Quillfish is a bulky boy. So they, Slayer decides to U-turn the hell out of there and send in Farfetch'd. I went for Liquidation. That's going to take off half of his health. Here's the thing. I'm wondering why he switched into Farfetch'd. He thought that Quillfish was part Dark type. It's actually Water and Poison type. But I think that so many people make that mistake. They make a lot of mistakes about Quillfish. They don't know what it is because nobody ever uses it, and they don't really know what it's all about. So Skarmory comes in, and this is the real problem for me. I have nothing that can counter the Skarmory. It completely walls out my entire team. Quillfish is the best bet against it with Liquidation, but unfortunately, that second Brave Bird is going to take me down. So you're thinking, well, he's on red health, and he's got his defense dropped by a third. But what can I really do to this thing? I sent in Seviper to try and Sucker Punch it. Unfortunately, he had gone for Roost. So I really should have went for something. But what was I going to go for? Poison Jab couldn't affect him. So I sent in Blacephalon thinking maybe I can get a fire move off. He sends out Stealth Rock. That's fine. But I'm thinking this is my only chance. Of course, he swaps over to Snorlax. So I had gone for Shadow Ball, actually. And I guess he predicted that because that's why he swapped in Snorlax. So Hydreigon comes in to take the Inferno Overdrive. It takes it pretty badly. That took off half of its health. I switch over to Hitmonchan just to kind of sack him off because I know there's a Draco Meteor coming, and I want to get that special attack drop. I actually live it, so I get a Mach Punch in and take down his Hydreigon. So I'm actually feeling not too badly about that. I really did not expect the Hitmonchan to take the Draco Meteor at all. It must have been, like max health or maybe max defense. Darmanitan comes in. I get a Mach Punch off before I go down to my Life Orb. And he had tried to go for Flare Blitz. So I sent in Blacephalon, knowing that he can take a Flare Blitz better. I went for Mind Blown. That's going to take his Darmanitan out. Mind Blown, of course, takes off a lot of my health, but that's okay. In comes Snorlax. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I just decided to Will-O-Wisp burn it and then go for Mind Blown if I live whatever he does. He went for Fire Punch. Blacephalon's part Fire type, so I don't know quite what he was thinking there. I went for Mind Blown. Obviously, I'm going to go down to the blowback from that, but he did his job. I don't feel too badly about that. So I'm thinking maybe he's locked into Fire Punch or something at this point because he went for it again, even though I'm a Fire type. I send in Seviper thinking, well, I can just, use Poison Jab, Coil and then Poison Jab or something like that. He goes for Return. It does, very little damage. Snorlax is burned. It's pretty much hobbled at this point because this is obviously a physical Snorlax. I went for Poison Jab. It just barely lives on that, but obviously it's going to go down to the burn. I went for Body Slam, so now I know he's not locked in. And wouldn't you believe it, that one Body Slam that he gets off on the end paralyzes me, and then he lives because of his freaking leftovers. So he goes for another Body Slam, which I take pretty well. The next Poison Jab is going to finally take this giant fat kitty cat down. I don't even know what Snorlax is supposed to be. So Snorlax comes in, Skarmory comes in, and like I said, I have nothing to do to this thing. He went for spikes, so my Sucker Punch, that wasn't going to pay off. I absolutely know that I lost because the Viper's only attacking moves are Sucker Punch, which missed there, which really sucks, and Poison Jab, which can't affect Skarmory. And my last Pokemon is the Shaman, which is going to get annihilated by the entry hazards, and then, it's weak to flying. So I just went for a Seed Flare. I knew it wasn't going to do anything. I do get a special defense drop. I know he's going to use Brave Bird. So that is gain. Skarmory is another Pokemon that is just... There's a couple of Pokemon from Gen 2 that are just frightening. Skarmory, Quillfish, Wobbuffet, Lantern. Although at least everybody knows that Skarmory is really good. So this next battle is against the Bad Killer, the 961. I don't know what that name's all about. So this is a really funny one. I sent in Ludicolo. They sent in Golduck. I'm thinking, well, they're probably going to want to swap out because they know that I'm going to do a Grass-type move. And they went for Scald. I'm thinking, what the hell? I double resist that. So I had gone for Hydro Pump thinking that they were going to, switch maybe over to... something else, and then I went for Giga Drink. I was like, okay, they're not going to switch, but then they went for Oricorio, so I'm like, what is going on here? What are they doing? So Revelation Dance hits me pretty hard, and I know I can't take another one, but the Ice Beam did pretty well, so I'm going to swap Ludicolo out here for Latias, because I figure here comes another Revelation Dance. They actually went for Hurricane, which does a surprising amount of damage to Latias, so that kind of sucks. So I Mega Evolved into Mega Latias and went for the Psyshock, and that's going to take Oricorio down. So, I'm one up. In comes Golduck. I'm like, all right, whatever, I decided to go for Draco Meteor. It just lived it, so that kind of sucks. And they get me with Ice Beam, which, of course, is super effective because Latias is Dragon-type. But the second Psyshock is going to take the Golduck down. So I'm thinking this person is either, one step ahead of me or 3 steps behind me, and I'm second-guessing myself. They sent an Uxie. I had gone for a Hidden Power. I forget what Hidden Power it was. It didn't matter. I knew I was going to go down. They used Knockoff, and that's going to take me down. So at this point, I send in Throw, because you're thinking, why would you send in Throw? Because it's weak to Psychic type. They actually went for Thunder Wave. I figured I would live whatever it was going to do. And I went for Knockoff, which is super effective on it, and I got rid of the leftover. So they went for Psychic. I actually lived that really well. The second Knockoff is going to take the Uxie down. So they sent out Garchomp, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is actually really good. So they Mega Evolved, because of course they did, and they went for Swords Dance. I'm not worried about this at all. I went for Ice Punch. Can you believe it just barely lived, that Ice Punch? They went for Earthquake to take me down, so I'm like, damn, I can't believe it just barely lived. But I sent in Zygarde here. This is Zygarde. 50% form, just went for the extreme speed, just to take the Garchomp down quickly, because it would have outsped me otherwise. Although Mega Garchomp doesn't have a lot of speed. So in comes Purugly. I was actually locked into extreme speed. They went for Knockoff. That's going to knock off my Choice Band, which actually kind of does me a favor because now I have more options. So Return is going to take me down into kind of the danger zone. I will decide to lock myself into Outrage, and Purugly goes down. So that's going to send me down to my complete form, and I get a few hit points back. They send in Hawlucha. So this is pretty much over at this point. They went for High Jump Kick. It gets a crit, but it's just not enough damage, and the second Outrage is going to take them down to a little bit more than half health. High Jump Kick, they don't get a crit again. I live on 2% health, and the last Outrage gets a critical, and that's going to take Hawlucha down. So, GG, that was a really interesting one, but I couldn't tell whether I was second-guessing myself or they were a step ahead of me in the beginning of that battle. So this is versus Pivonako. So I sent out Swanna here, and they sent out Wailord, and I figured it had Ice Beam, but I thought maybe I'll just stay in and try to Scald, burn it or something. I don't get the burn, and I take the Ice Beam, not the greatest. I know I can take one more, but I decided, alright, let's try Air/Flinch. I do get the first flinch, so I'm like, alright, I'll just keep doing this as long as I can. I get an Air/off. It's doing a surprising amount of damage. I don't get a flinch that time, but then I get frozen. I knew I could live a second one, but thankfully I have Scald, so that's going to unfreeze me. I'm just hoping, please burn, please burn. I know I'm going to go down to the next Ice Beam. I don't get the burn. Of course, Swanna goes down, but the really, Wailord's really fat. I took it down to the red health. So I sent in Maractus because I figured I could take an Ice Beam. and then Leech Seed this thing. And you're thinking, well, why do that? I get a lot of health back because even though Wailord's on low health, it's Wailord has so many hit points, so I get a lot back. So I put up the spiky shield so that it will go down to Leech Seed, and then I would be protected, and I get a little more health back. So I'm rather proud of that. So they sent in the Alolan form Raichu, and they use Psyshock. They obviously have a Life Orb. I know I'm not going to be able to take it down, so I just decide, well, let's just see if I can do something with Giga Drain. I know I'm going to go down to another Psyshock here, but maybe I can just put up a spiky shield and maybe get a little health back, and maybe he'll get a bad damage roll, or he'll do a different move expecting me to swap or something. Then I swap over to Rotom Heat. So Rotom Heat takes the Psyshock a little better. It has better special defense. That's pretty much why I swapped into it. Unfortunately, this doesn't go my way because then he uses Surf. I should have figured it was a Surfing Raichu. I go down, so I'm like, man, this Raichu's a problem. So I send in Bibarel. Bibarel is going to outspeed him with the Aqua Jet, and then obviously, well, that's a priority move, and that's going to be able to take him down right away. So Bibarel went up against a Raichu, can you believe it? So in comes Dragalja. I decide to go for a Swords Dance because I figure I'll probably live whatever it does. It's probably going to go for Toxic. They actually went for Toxic Spikes, which is fine with, so Return is going to completely body Dragalja. It doesn't have the best defense, and Bibarel, at 3x attack is actually kind of scary. So Tauros comes in and cuts my attack. I know I'm going to get outsped, so I decided to go for Quick Attack just to put some damage on it because I figure here comes Earthquake or Double Edge, and it did turn out to be Double Edge. I'm glad it was Double Edge because that's a little more chip damage from the recoil. So I sent in Staraptor because I figured, well, at least it's not going to get poisoned. They go for another Double Edge. I live it very badly, and they're down in the danger zone, so close combat probably wasn't necessary, but I was doing that just in case. And I'm on 2% health here. So in comes Nihiliga with the air balloon. I'm thinking, oh, crap. Well, they're going to acid spray me. I decided to stay in because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything. What could I possibly do there? So I sent in Maractus. It gets poisoned. Of course it does. They went for Sludge Wave. So now at least I know what their poison type move is. Well, I have Tuba. They have Acid Spray and Sludge Wave, so I'm thinking that's a little overkill. So my last Pokemon is the Mega Blaziken. I'm not really having high hopes here. I think I pretty much lost. I took the Power Gem, a little better than I thought I would. The High Jump Kick, he just barely lives it. That really sucks. I was hoping that would take him down. I get a Speed Boost, so I'm like, okay, well, now I'll outspeed him. So I did a second High Jump Kick, and that's going to take the Nihiligo down. So I'm like, okay, this all depends on what his last Pokemon is. I'm poisoned, but I have, Speed Boost, Blaziken. It's Cloyster. Can I kill this thing? It's weak to fighting. It just lived on 6% health. That sucks. And Hydro Pump actually hits. It would have been amazing if it missed because I would have won. But that's going to be game. That was a really close one. So this next one is versus Man You Suck. What a username on this guy, huh? So he sends in Wormadam, and I send in Ariados. So Ariados is a setup Pokemon. He pretty much exists to set up Sticky Web. So I do that. Hidden Power hits me, I think it's probably Hidden Power Fire or something. I went for Poison Jab. It actually does really good damage. The second Hidden Power is going to take me down. So I'm like, okay, actually, Ariados did a lot better than I thought he would, and you get the sticky webs up. So I sent in Nopey McNopeface. I went for Rock Slide. It missed. Rock Slide has 90% accuracy, and it missed. Of course it did. They went for Hidden Power. That's super effective, which makes me think that's Hidden Power Rock, because it was effective on Wormadam and Darmanitan, so it's got to be Hidden Power Rock. They sent in Bruxish. I think, well, this is a bad matchup, but let me try Earthquake, because I know I'm going to outspeed it because of the sticky webs. It does pretty good damage. They actually went for Psychic Fangs instead of like a Water-type move, but I was on such low health that takes me down. So I sent in Samurott because of its defenses, and I decided to get a Swords Dance off right away. They went for Psychic Fangs. I took it well enough. I went for Aqua Jet. That's going to take him down. I went for Aqua Jet just in case, he used a priority move as well. So in comes Muck. This is a problem because even though I'm boosted, there's not much I can do against it, and it decided to go for Shadow Sneak, so there was nothing I can do there. So I sent in Vileplume just in case it goes for, any poison-type moves. It goes for Shadow Sneak again. I went for Sleep Powder, so all right, now I have a little breathing room. This thing's asleep. And by the way, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but there is a thing on Pokemon Showdown where only one Pokemon can be asleep on a team at a time. So they sent in Mothin. I decided to go for Giga Drain against the Muck. The Mothin takes it a lot better. Motham's a bit of a problem. I sent in Tyranitar. Tyranitar is weak to bug-type moves. He uses Quiver Dance. I'm like, oh, so he's going to use Bug Buzz. Probably going to take off most of my health. It might even kill, but maybe I can live it and take this thing down with a Stone Edge. So I Mega Evolve, went for Stone Edge. I take the Bug Buzz very badly, and I'm just like praying to Arceus that this Stone Edge is going to hit. It does, and Mothim goes down. That thing was a real problem because it wasn't slowed down by the sticky webs, you know? So they send the Muck back in. It's still sleeping, so I'm not like super worried about this. So I decided to use Earthquake because that is super effective. It's going to take 2 Earthquakes to take it down. Thankfully, the Muck doesn't wake up there. And I guess he's sacking it off because he's not waking up. Maybe he was hoping he could wake up and, you know, hit me with like Gunk Shot or something, which would have easily taken Tyranitar down. But he wouldn't have outsped me, so there's that too. So he sends in Heliolisk. I think he's just done at this point because Heliolisk is going to go down to an Earthquake really easy. It is an electric. It's electric and normal type, so that didn't stand a chance. And then their final Pokemon is Blacephalon. I'm thinking, okay, well, it's probably going to live it because Blacephalon's bulky, but I'm going to use Earthquake. It actually went down like a sack of bricks, so that was really interesting. It must have been like a different kind of Blacephalon. So Manusuk did pretty well, but unfortunately was pretty much walled out by the Tyranitar. And the last battle here is versus Odyssey Slayer. That is a cool name. They sent out Dragalja, and I start out with Florges. So I'm thinking, well, they might swap, but let me just try the Fairy-type move. Anyway, they didn't swap. They stayed in because they're going for Sludge Wave. So Sludge Wave, you know, Florges is weak. You know, Fairy-type's weak to Poison. Dragon-type's weak to Fairy. I decide to protect. Maybe if I can get enough leftovers back, I can live another Sludge Wave because I know that Moonblast is not going to do enough damage. But I don't really get the health back that I was looking for, but I get another Moonblast off on him and, you know, take him down into that danger zone anyway. My Florges goes down. So I bring in Unknown. It has Hidden Power Psychic, which is the most obvious kind of Hidden Power it can have. This is a letter A. Hoopa comes in and is going to Shadow Ball me to death. Unknown has like no defenses. There's nothing it can do. It can only have Hidden Power. So I said in Klinglang. Klinglang is like one of my favorite steel types. It's just such a stupid looking Pokemon, but boy, does it have utility. They sent in Lilligant to take the Gear Grind, which probably would have bodied Hoopa. Now I figure this thing is probably only here to put me to sleep. Luckily, I was right, and Sleep Powder misses, which is awesome. So I got my Shift Gear off, which is going to raise my speed. So now I'm going to outspeed it, and because of the boosted attack, I know I'm going to take the Lilligant down with the second Gear Grind. That first crit, that didn't even matter. That wasn't even necessary. So Lilligant goes down. In comes Milotic. Now I actually have Wild Charge, and I was debating whether or not to use it. I decided to use it. The Milotic actually takes it pretty well. They went for Scald. They get a critical. They were definitely hoping for a burn there, though, and they didn't get it. So I'm lucky I didn't get burned. I went for Gear Grind because I didn't want to deal with Wild Charge's blowback on, you know, when that was more than enough to take it down. So there goes Milotic. Butterfree comes in. I'm not worried. I just go for Gear Grind, and that is going to be enough to take it down to a sliver of health, 3% health. They went for Giga Drain. Unfortunately, that's going to take me down. But Klinglang really did a great job there. I was very happy with its performance. So I sent in Scyther and just went for Aerial Ace just to take down Butterfree very quickly. Obviously, I'm running Eviolite, so it's a pretty tough Scyther. They sent in Hoopa, and they set up the Nasty Plot, which is a really interesting choice. I went for Bug Bite. It does a little more than half damage. They decided to swap out to Regice. Now, Regice is a real problem for me. I had gone for another Bug Bite. It takes it pretty well. I'm thinking this thing probably has Fire Blast, so I switched over to Octillery. It actually went for Ice Beam. So I'm thinking it's probably Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Fire Blast, and yeah, they did have Thunderbolt. And then the last move was probably like Protect or something like that. Unfortunately, my Fire Blast missed, and they're able to take me down with Thunderbolt. That would have really just been really helpful if that would have hit. So I sent in my Sigilif. Sigilif is a crazy Pokemon. It's like, let's do a Pokemon that's a more Xatu than Xatu is. So I went for the Cosmic Power. Unfortunately, their Ice Beam does really great damage. My Flame Orb kicks in, and I use Psycho Shift to shift the burn over to Regice and heal myself, which is what Sigilif was there to do. Unfortunately, I go down to the second Ice Beam. All I have left is Scyther, so I'm thinking, well, now that it's burned, it's not really that much of a threat, so I can at least get off a Swords Dance. They go for Ice Beam. It does a lot of damage, so I know I absolutely have to attack now because I can't take a second Ice Beam. I went for Aerial Ace, and it was just enough. I mean, that was probably a close thing on that because Aerial Ace is not particularly powerful. In comes Hoopa. They went for Psyshock. I just barely lived it, and I get them with the Bug Bite, and that's going to be it. That's going to be game. What a close battle. I really didn't think I was going to be able to win that one, but just came back from the edge. So hope to see you guys soon with more Pokemon Showdown and more great content on this channel.